Have you ever wondered why darkness makes you drowsy? It's such a simple thing. Really, the fading of light, the deepening of shadows, and suddenly your eyelids grow heavy. But this isn't just habit. This isn't conditioning or routine. This is something far older, far deeper, woven into the very fabric of your being by forces that existed long before you took your first breath. Tonight, as you settle into stillness, I want you to consider something remarkable. Your sleep is not truly yours alone. It belongs, in part, to the sky, to the rhythm of celestial bodies that have been turning overhead for billions of years, casting their gentle influence down upon this small, spinning world. Every breath you take as you drift toward rest is part of an ancient conversation between your body and the cosmos, a dialogue spoken in the language of light and darkness, of rising and setting, of gravitational whispers too subtle to hear but impossible to ignore. Look up, if only in your mind's eye. Imagine the night sky as it appears far from the electric glow of cities, where darkness still holds its original depth. There, the stars emerge not one by one, but in cascading multitudes, spilling across the black canvas like scattered diamonds. The moon hangs luminous and patient, tracing its endless arc from horizon to horizon. And somewhere beyond your sight, the sun waits on the far side of the world, preparing for its inevitable return. This is the theater where your sleep was born, long before alarm clocks and bedside lamps. Before schedules and obligations, your ancestors lived beneath this same vast ceiling. They watched the stars wheel overhead. They measured time by the moon's changing face. They felt the sun's warmth fade as evening approached, and they understood, not intellectually, but instinctively, that darkness was the signal to rest. Their bodies responded to the sky's cues with perfect, unquestioning obedience. They slept when the world went dark. They woke when light returned. It was simple. It was natural. It was the only way anyone had ever known. And here's the beautiful, humbling truth. Your body still remembers, deep in your brain, in clusters of cells that have remained essentially unchanged for hundreds of thousands of years. The same mechanisms that guided your ancestors continue to operate. They measure light. They track time. They whisper instructions to your nervous system, orchestrating the intricate biochemical ballet that transforms alertness into drowsiness, consciousness into dreams. These mechanisms don't care about your deadlines or your Netflix queue or your racing thoughts. They answer to something older, something vaster. They answer to the sky. The breathing of the world slows as night deepens. Animals settle into burrows and nests. Plants close their leaves against the cooling air. Even the earth itself seems to exhale, releasing the day's accumulated heat into the endless void above. And you, lying here in the darkness, are part of this planetary rhythm. Your heartbeat synchronizes with the great, slow pulse of nature. Your breathing matches the cadence of waves lapping against distant shores, of wind moving through forests, of tides responding to the moon's invisible pull. This connection, this cosmic thread that links your rest to the movements of celestial bodies, is not metaphor. It is biology. It is physics. It is the accumulated wisdom of 3 billion years of life adapting to a spinning planet's reliable cycles of light and dark. Your DNA carries instructions shaped by starlight and moonbeams, by countless sunrises and sunsets stretching back through an unbroken lineage to the very first organisms that learned to distinguish day from night. As you settle deeper into comfort, as your muscles release their tension and your thoughts begin to scatter and soften. Remember this, you are not simply going to sleep. You are participating in something timeless and universal. You are joining the great nightly migration of consciousness that sweeps across the planet as the shadow of night rolls westward. Billions of human beings, countless animals, entire ecosystems surrendering together to the gentle authority of darkness. The sky watches over you. The stars bear witness. The moon casts its silver light through your window, and somewhere beyond the horizon, the sun prepares to return and wake you when the time is right. For now, though, the night is yours. The quiet is yours. And the ancient, celestial rhythm of sleep welcomes you home. But to truly understand this connection, to feel its full depth, we must journey backward through time, to an era when humanity's relationship with the night sky was not nostalgic or romantic. but immediate and essential. Imagine the world without electric light. Not just without it in the sense of turning off a switch, but genuinely, utterly absent, a world where darkness, when it came, was absolute and irrevocable. A world where fire was the only rebellion against the night, a small sphere of wavering orange light pushed back by an ocean of black. This was the world your ancient ancestors inhabited, and in that world, sleep was not a choice or a habit. It was survival. Picture them now. A small group of humans, perhaps 20 or 30 individuals, gathered around a fire in the mouth of a shallow cave. The year might be 50,000 years ago, or 100,000, it hardly matters. The scene has played out across countless generations, across every habitable continent, in forests and grasslands and mountain valleys. The specifics change, but the essential elements remain: fire, darkness, and the approaching need for sleep. The fire crackles and spits, sending sparks spiraling upward into the night. Beyond its protective circle, the world is alive with sounds: the distant call of a hunting owl, the rustle of something moving through dry grass, the whisper of wind through branches. These early humans have no way to illuminate that darkness, no way to push back the night beyond the fire's modest reach. When the flames die down to coals, when the wood runs out or the wind blows too hard, the darkness wins. And in that darkness, predators hunt. This was the stark reality that shaped human sleep for the vast majority of our species' existence. Darkness was dangerous. Darkness concealed threats. And yet darkness was also inevitable, arriving with mathematical precision every single day as the sun dipped below the horizon and the world transformed. From a place of visibility into a realm of uncertain shadows and imagined dangers they developed strategies. These early ancestors of yours, they learned to read the sky's signals, to anticipate the coming of night and prepare for it. They learned which caves offered protection, which trees could be climbed to escape ground predators, which clearings provided enough sight lines to spot approaching danger even in dim light. But most importantly, they learned to synchronize their rest with the natural cycle of light and dark, because fighting against that cycle meant staying awake in the most dangerous hours, burning energy the body desperately needed to conserve. The moon became their calendar and their comfort. On nights when it rose full and bright, casting silver illumination across the landscape, they could see relatively well even after sunset. They could gather food for a few extra hours. They could travel short distances if necessary. The children could play a bit longer before being called to the fire. But on dark moon nights, those stretches when the moon rose late or not at all, when the stars alone provided what little light penetrated the darkness, they learned to settle early, to huddle close, to conserve their energy and wait for dawn's return. Notice how this differs from modern sleep. They didn't have a consistent bedtime. They didn't aim for 8 hours of uninterrupted rest in a dark, quiet room. Their sleep was responsive, adaptive, shaped by immediate circumstances. When nights were long and dark, they slept longer. When nights were bright with moonlight, they stayed active later. When danger pressed close, a prowling predator, a rival group nearby, they slept in shifts, taking turns keeping watch while others rested. The idea of sleeping through the night, as we understand it, that solid block of unconsciousness from evening to morning, simply didn't exist. Historical records and anthropological studies of isolated groups still living traditional lifestyles suggest our ancestors practiced what researchers call biphasic or even polyphasic sleep patterns. They would sleep for a few hours after dark, then wake naturally in the middle of the night during what was sometimes called the watching hours. During this period, which might last 1 or 2 hours, they would tend the fire, talk quietly, make love, contemplate the stars. Then they would sleep again until dawn. This pattern continued for thousands of generations, only breaking down with the advent of artificial light and industrial work schedules. And the stars. Oh, the stars were everything to these early watchers of the night, with no light pollution obscuring the view, with no screens or distractions pulling attention downward. The night sky revealed itself in its full, staggering glory. The Milky Way stretched across the darkness like a river of light, so bright in some places it cast faint shadows. Individual stars blazed with a clarity that modern city dwellers can scarcely imagine. Planets wandered their slow paths against the fixed background of constellations. Meteor showers lit up the darkness with bright streaks of cosmic debris burning up in the atmosphere. These celestial displays were not entertainment. They were information. The appearance of certain star patterns signaled changing seasons, the time to migrate, the approach of rainy periods or dry spells. The stars were the first clock, the first calendar, the first navigation system. And as humans laid down to sleep beneath them, their brains were processing these patterns, unconsciously absorbing the rhythms of the cosmos and synchronizing internal biological processes to match external astronomical realities. The transition from wakefulness to sleep became associated with the transition from light to dark, from visible world to invisible realm. Dreams took on special significance because they occurred during the hours when the stars held dominion, when consciousness dimmed and something deeper, something more connected to the mysterious universe, could emerge. Many cultures came to believe that dreams were messages from the gods or the ancestors, that sleep was a time when the soul could travel to other realms, guided by starlight. But beneath the mythology and spirituality, beneath the cultural interpretations and ritual practices, something more fundamental was happening. The human body was evolving in response to this nightly cycle of light and dark. Genes were being selected that made us more efficient sleepers during dark hours, that made our eyes more sensitive to firelight and moonlight, that synchronized our internal chemistry with the Earth's rotation. Without anyone understanding the mechanisms involved, without conscious intention or planning, humanity was becoming a species designed to sleep beneath the stars. And here's what makes this history so relevant to you. Lying here tonight trying to rest, those evolutionary adaptations didn't disappear. They're still operating. Your body still produces melatonin in response to darkness. Your internal clock still tries to sync with sunrise and sunset, even when curtains and alarm clocks interfere. The part of your brain that monitors for threats still maintains a low level of vigilance during sleep, ready to wake you if danger approaches, a holdover from those nights around the fire. When sleeping too deeply could mean death, you carry the first sleepless nights within you. The memory is encoded in your biology, in the very structure of your nervous system. And when you struggle with sleep in the modern world, when you lie awake scrolling through blue-lit screens, when anxiety keeps you alert past midnight, when your schedule forces you awake before dawn, part of what you're experiencing is the mismatch between your ancient biology and your modern environment. But we'll return to that tension later. For now, we remain in the deep past, where fire flickers low and eyes grow heavy, where the vast wheel of stars turns overhead, and where one celestial body in particular exerts a special kind of influence. There is a light in the night sky that has watched over every sleeping human who ever lived. That it changes faces, sometimes a bright, full circle of reflected sunlight, sometimes a slender crescent hanging delicate as a fingernail clipping, sometimes utterly absent, leaving the night to the stars alone. But it returns, always, with mathematical reliability, cycling through its phases with such consistent precision that ancient peoples used it to measure time itself. This is the moon, and its relationship with human sleep is far stranger and more profound than most people realize. Stand outside on a night when the moon is full. Let your eyes adjust to its light, not the pale, insufficient glow it appears to be when you've just come from a brightly lit room, but the genuine, substantial illumination it provides once your night vision fully engages. You'll be surprised by what you can see. Trees and their individual branches, the texture of ground beneath your feet, your own shadow, faint but distinct, cast by reflected sunlight that has traveled 93 million miles from the sun to the moon, and then another 250,000 miles from the moon to your eyes. Our ancestors knew this light intimately. They planned by it, traveled by it. On full moon nights, when conditions allowed, they could hunt, gather, or move between locations even after sunset. The moon was generous on such nights, offering a few precious extra hours of usable light. And because these full moons arrived predictably, once every 29.5 days, they became anchor points in the calendar, markers around which life could be organized. But the moon offered more than just light. It offered something harder to define, something that ancient peoples felt intuitively but couldn't explain: a presence, a personality, a living force that waxed and waned, that pulled at the oceans and, they suspected, at human bodies as well. The tides made the connection obvious. If you lived near the coast, you watched the sea rise and fall in rhythm with the moon's phases. You saw how the highest tides coincided with the full and new moons, when the sun and moon aligned their gravitational forces. You felt the pull, even if you couldn't name it or understand the physics involved. And you wondered, if the moon can move entire oceans, what else might it influence? Women noticed that their menstrual cycles often synchronized with lunar cycles, both running approximately 29 days. Whether this was coincidence, environmental influence, or something more mysterious, no one could say, but the correlation seemed meaningful. Farmers observed that seeds planted during certain moon phases seemed to germinate better, that animals behaved differently as the moon waxed and waned. Sailors knew that fish bit more readily during particular lunar periods. Hunters claimed that game moved differently under a full moon's brightness. Were all these observations accurate? Did the moon genuinely influence these phenomena, or were humans simply excellent pattern seekers, finding connections even where none existed? Modern science has grappled with these questions, and the answers are complicated. For a long time, mainstream medicine dismissed lunar effects on human biology as superstition. Yes, the moon affected tides. The gravitational pull was undeniable. But human bodies contain far too little water for that same gravitational force to have any meaningful effect. The gravitational pull of the Earth itself swamps any lunar influence. So any claims about the moon affecting sleep, mood, or behavior must be psychological, cultural, or simply mistaken. Or so the thinking went. But then researchers started actually measuring sleep during different lunar phases, using modern technology, polysomnography, actigraphy, controlled laboratory environments. And they found something unexpected. Study after study, conducted in different countries with different populations, began showing subtle but consistent patterns. During the days leading up to a full moon, people took slightly longer to fall asleep, about 5 minutes on average. They slept slightly less overall, about 20 minutes less. Their deep sleep stages shortened. Their melatonin levels showed different patterns. The effects were small enough that most people wouldn't consciously notice them, but they were real. They were measurable. They were consistent. The findings puzzled researchers because they couldn't identify a clear mechanism. The gravitational explanation didn't work. The light explanation seemed insufficient. Many of the studies were conducted in windowless rooms where participants couldn't see the moon at all. And yet, somehow, human bodies were responding to the lunar cycle. Some scientists have suggested that we carry an internal lunar clock, just as we carry an internal circadian clock that responds to the sun. This clock might have evolved during those hundreds of thousands of years our ancestors spent sleeping outdoors, when the moon's light genuinely affected nighttime conditions. Even though most modern humans sleep in darkened rooms where moonlight never penetrates, the ancient timing mechanism persists, still tracking the lunar cycle through some mechanism we don't yet understand. Perhaps it's related to the subtle gravitational effects that, while too small to move water in our bodies, might still be detected by the incredibly sensitive magnetoreceptors some researchers believe exist in human cells. Or perhaps the explanation is simpler and more poetic. Perhaps we're not responding to the moon itself, but to something else that responds to the moon: tidal patterns, animal behavior, electromagnetic variations. And these secondary effects ripple through the interconnected web of nature until they reach us in our beds, manifesting as slightly lighter sleep, slightly later onset of drowsiness, slightly more vivid dreams. The ancient peoples who worshipped lunar deities, Selene and Artemis in Greece, Luna in Rome, Chandra in India, Khonsu in Egypt, weren't engaging in mere mythology. They were acknowledging a relationship they could feel but not fully explain. They built temples to the moon, timed ceremonies by its phases, and attributed all manner of influences to its presence. Some of these attributions were surely exaggerated or incorrect, but at the core, they recognized something true: the moon matters. It affects us. And sleep, that most vulnerable and mysterious state, seems particularly sensitive to its influence. There's a particular quality to moonlight that cannot be replicated artificially. It's not just dimmer than sunlight, it's different in character. Moonlight is reflected light, sunlight that has bounced off a gray, airless surface and been transformed in the process. It's cooler in color temperature, shifted toward the blue end of the spectrum. It creates a world of high contrast and deep shadows, where colors wash out but shapes become strangely distinct. Artists and poets have tried for centuries to capture the unique atmosphere of moonlit landscapes. The way familiar places become strange and dreamlike. The way the world seems suspended between the clarity of day and the mystery of starlit darkness. When you sleep under moonlight, actually under it, outside, with no roof between you and the sky, the experience is distinct from sleeping in complete darkness. The moon's glow penetrates closed eyelids just enough to register, creating a soft awareness that prevents sleep from becoming as deep as it might in total blackness. This lighter sleep might have been adaptive for our ancestors, keeping them alert enough to respond to threats while still allowing significant rest. And perhaps this is why full moon periods still correlate with slightly lighter, more easily disrupted sleep. Our bodies remember when sleeping too deeply under bright moonlight was dangerous. But there's another side to the moon's relationship with sleep. One that's harder to quantify, but no less real. Its gift of peace. How many troubled souls have found comfort in moonlight? How many insomniacs have gone to windows, looked up at that serene, unchanging face, and felt their anxiety ease just slightly? There's something about the moon's patience, its predictable cycling, its gentle presence, that speaks to something deep in human psychology. It's been there every night of your life. It was there before you were born and will remain long after you're gone. It doesn't judge or demand or expect. It simply is, following its ancient orbital path, reflecting the sun's light onto a world that turns beneath it. The moon teaches the rhythm of change within constancy. It waxes and wanes, appears and disappears, and yet it's always there, even when hidden. This rhythm mirrors sleep itself, the nightly dissolution of consciousness and its daily return, the cycle of alertness and rest. The eternal oscillation between engagement with the world and withdrawal into inner darkness. Tonight, whether you can see the moon or not, whether it's full or new or somewhere in between, feel its presence. It's there, pulling at the waters of earth, casting light or withholding it, marking time as it has marked time for billions of years. Your body knows its rhythm. Your sleep responds to its phases. You are connected to it through chains of causation too complex to fully untangle, through evolutionary history and biological mechanisms, and perhaps through something even more mysterious, that same gravitational music that moves oceans and guides tides and whispers through the intricate machinery of your nervous system. The moon watches over your sleep, and in watching, it exerts its gentle pull, drawing you deeper into the rhythm of the cosmos. But the moon is not the only celestial guardian of your rest. There is another, far more powerful force that governs the grand architecture of human sleep. Dawn arrives whether you're ready or not. It doesn't ask permission. It doesn't accommodate your schedule or your preferences or your desperate desire for just a few more minutes of rest. It simply comes, inevitable as gravity, as the Earth's rotation carries your particular patch of ground back around to face the sun once more. And when it comes, when that first light begins to seep through curtains or across horizons, something fundamental shifts in your biology. You might think you sleep through sunrise. You might believe your alarm clock is what wakes you, that you're insulated from the sun's influence by walls and window treatments and the artificial control of modern life. But you'd be wrong, because even while you sleep, even behind closed eyelids, through curtains and walls, your body is tracking the sun with exquisite precision. The mechanism is elegant and ancient. Light enters your eyes, even the small amount that penetrates eyelids, and travels to the retina, where specialized cells called intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells detect it. These cells aren't involved in vision. You don't see with them. Instead, they're dedicated sensors whose sole purpose is to monitor ambient light levels and report that information to a tiny cluster of neurons deep in your brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, or SCN. This is your master clock, the conductor of your body's biological orchestra. The SCN receives the light level report and uses that information to coordinate an astonishingly complex cascade of processes. When light levels are high, the SCN suppresses production of melatonin, that hormone that makes you drowsy. It signals the adrenal glands to ramp up cortisol production, giving you energy and alertness. It adjusts your body temperature upward. You're warmer during the day than at night, and this temperature variation helps regulate the sleep-wake cycle. It influences appetite, digestion, immune function, cognitive performance, and dozens of other physiological processes. All of this happens automatically, orchestrated by the sun's position in the sky, without any conscious awareness or effort on your part. Our ancestors understood the sun's power over sleep not through science, but through direct experience. When the sun rose, you woke, not because anyone told you to, but because your body responded to the light with surging wakefulness. When the sun set, drowsiness crept in like fog rolling across a valley. There was no fighting it, no override switch. You were quite literally running on solar power. Your internal rhythms synchronized to the vast nuclear furnace, 93 million miles away, that illuminates one half of your planet, while the other half rests in shadow. The sun was worshipped by virtually every ancient culture, and while much of that worship was metaphorical or spiritual, there was a practical element too. The sun was life itself, warmth, growth, visibility, safety, and it was time itself, the great cosmic metronome that divided existence into the fundamental categories of day and night, light and dark, wakefulness and sleep. Consider the sun's daily journey from your perspective. You're standing on a planet that's spinning eastward at roughly 1,000 miles per hour at the equator, though you feel no motion. From your vantage point, it appears that the sun is moving, rising in the east, climbing to its zenith, descending in the west. This apparent motion is so smooth, so predictable, that ancient peoples used it to create the first clocks, sundials that measured the sun's shadow as it swept across a flat surface, dividing the day into manageable segments. But the sun's influence on sleep goes deeper than mere timekeeping. The quality of sunlight changes throughout the day, and your body responds to these changes with remarkable specificity. Morning sunlight is rich in blue wavelengths. This blue light is particularly effective at suppressing melatonin and promoting alertness. When you step outside on a bright morning and feel suddenly more awake, you're experiencing the effect of blue light hitting those specialized cells in your retinas and signaling your SCN that day has begun in earnest. This is why sleep experts recommend getting morning sunlight exposure if you struggle with sleep. It helps set your circadian rhythm, making it easier to feel sleepy at the appropriate time. That evening, as the sun climbs higher, the light becomes more intense, but also shifts slightly in color temperature, becoming more neutral. This is peak alertness time. When your body temperature is highest, your reaction times are fastest, your cognitive performance is optimized. Every system is primed for activity, for engagement with the world. The sun overhead is both literal and metaphorical fuel. Then comes afternoon. The sun begins its descent. The angle changes, the light softens, and imperceptibly at first, your body begins to prepare for the transition ahead. Cortisol levels start to drop. Body temperature begins its slow decline. You might feel a dip in energy, that afternoon slump that so many people combat with coffee. This dip is your circadian rhythm asserting itself. Your internal clock noting the sun's changing position and adjusting accordingly. And then, sunset. There's a reason humans have always found sunsets beautiful, have stopped their work to watch the sky transform through gradients of orange and pink and purple. Beyond the aesthetic appeal, beyond the romantic associations, there's a biological response. The fading of light triggers the beginning of your body's sleep preparation sequence. As blue wavelengths disappear from the spectrum and the light shifts toward warmer reds and oranges, your pineal gland begins to produce melatonin. The day's adrenaline and cortisol are metabolizing away. Your core temperature continues to drop. You need to be slightly cooler to sleep well. Your thinking becomes less sharp, less focused. You're entering the transitional space between day consciousness and night rest. In the natural world, without artificial light interference. This process unfolds with smooth inevitability. The sun sets, twilight deepens, darkness arrives, and sleep follows within an hour or two. Your body doesn't need to be told what to do. It's following a script written over hundreds of millions of years of evolution, refined and perfected across countless generations of organisms learning to synchronize their activity with their planet's rotation. But here's what makes the sun's role as timekeeper so profound. It's not just that the sun affects your sleep. It's that the sun created your circadian rhythm in the first place, billions of years ago, when the first single-celled organisms appeared in Earth's oceans. They faced a fundamental challenge. The environment changed dramatically between day and night. UV radiation from the sun could damage DNA, making daytime dangerous. But sunlight also enabled photosynthesis for organisms that developed that capability, making daytime essential. The organisms that survived were those that could anticipate these changes, that could prepare for the coming transition rather than simply reacting to it. And so, deep within their cellular machinery, these ancient organisms developed an internal clock, a roughly 24-hour cycle of biochemical processes that allowed them to predict dawn and dusk and adjust their behavior accordingly. This circadian rhythm, from the Latin circa diem, meaning around a day, proved so valuable that it was preserved and elaborated as life evolved, becoming more sophisticated as organisms grew more complex, but never fundamentally changing its core function: to synchronize internal biological processes with the external cycle of day and night. You inherited that ancient clock. The same basic mechanism that allowed a bacterium to anticipate sunrise 3 billion years ago is operating in your brain right now, still tracking the sun's position, still coordinating the intricate dance of hormones and neurotransmitters that governs your sleep and wakefulness. This is why jet lag feels so disorienting. You've transported your body across time zones faster than your internal clock can adjust, creating a mismatch between your biology and the local sun position. This is why shift work is so detrimental to health. You're forcing your body to be alert when the sun says it should be resting, and vice versa, fighting against billions of years of evolutionary programming. This is why seasonal affective disorder strikes in winter. Shorter days mean less sunlight exposure, and your circadian system struggles to maintain its timing when the solar signals it depends on are diminished. The sun is not a metaphor for time. It is time, at least in the biological sense. Every cell in your body operates on a schedule set by the sun's predictable cycle. And when that schedule is disrupted, when the sun's signal is confused by artificial light or blocked by indoor living, your sleep suffers because you've disconnected from the fundamental timekeeper that gives your biology its rhythm and structure. So imagine, just for a moment, what it would be like to live entirely by the sun's clock once more. To wake with the dawn, not because an alarm forces you awake, but because your body is ready, energized by the morning light. To spend your day alert and active, synchronized with the sun's arc across the sky. To feel natural drowsiness arrive with twilight, gentle and inevitable. To sleep through the full darkness and wake again renewed when the next dawn arrives. This is the life your body was designed for. This is the rhythm the sun created in you. And while modern life makes this pure synchronization impossible for most people, understanding the sun's role, respecting its power over your biology, can help you work with your body's needs rather than against them. The sun watches over your sleep by marking time itself, by setting the pace your body wants to follow, by offering the bright bookmark of dawn and the gentle lullaby of sunset. But the sun is only part of the celestial map your ancestors used to navigate time. On a clear night, far from any city, the stars emerge in their thousands, not gradually, not the way you see them from suburban backyards, where a few dozen brightest stars slowly become visible as twilight deepens. No, in true darkness, with no light pollution for hundreds of miles. The stars appear suddenly and overwhelmingly. The moment the sun dips below the horizon and the sky's illumination drops beneath a critical threshold. One moment, a deep blue emptiness. The next, 1,000 points of light. Then thousands more as your eyes adjust. Then the faint, cloudy band of the Milky Way, our galaxy's disk seen from inside, stretching across the vault of heaven. This is the sky your ancestors knew. This is the ceiling beneath which humanity spent its first 100,000 years or more. And these stars, fixed in their patterns, wheeling predictably overhead, became the world's first precise timepiece. The sun measured days. The moon measured months. But the stars measured the great year, the full cycle of seasons that governed planting and harvesting, migration and hibernation, life and death. And because sleep patterns shifted with the seasons, longer sleep in winter's extended darkness, shorter sleep during summer's bright nights, the stars became guardians of rest, marking the slow progression of time at scales beyond individual days or moon cycles. Ancient peoples learned the stars with an intimacy that's difficult for modern people to comprehend. The constellations weren't just patterns to them. They were navigation tools, calendars, storybooks, and sacred texts. Every culture created their own constellation systems, seeing different figures in the same stars, but all shared the recognition that these patterns were reliable, that they returned to the same positions at the same times each year, that they could be trusted in ways that earthly landmarks could not. The Babylonians mapped the ecliptic, the apparent path of the sun across the background stars, and divided it into 12 sections, creating the zodiac that still appears in horoscopes today. But this wasn't mysticism or superstition, at least not originally. It was practical astronomy. The zodiacal constellations marked the sun's position throughout the year. When Virgo rose before dawn, it was time to harvest grain. When Scorpius dominated the evening sky, winter was approaching. The stars told you where you were in the great annual cycle. And that information shaped everything from agriculture to warfare to religious festivals. Egyptian priests watched for the heliacal rising of Sirius, the moment when that brilliant star first became visible in the dawn sky after weeks of being lost in the sun's glare. Sirius's return coincided with the annual flooding of the Nile, the event upon which Egyptian civilization depended absolutely. The star's appearance warned that the floods were coming, giving farmers time to prepare. This was such critical information that Sirius became deified as Sopdet, a goddess of fertility and renewal. And the Egyptian calendar was structured around her movements. Greek shepherds, spending their nights in the hills watching their flocks, learned every star and constellation visible to the naked eye. They knew that when certain stars appeared at certain positions, heliacal settings, culminations, specific alignments, it signaled changes in weather patterns. They developed an entire agricultural calendar based on stellar observations, recorded in texts like Hesiod's, Works, and Days, which instructed farmers when to plow, when to plant, when to harvest, all based on the positions of stars and constellations. And here's what connects this directly to sleep. These ancient observers spent vast amounts of time awake at night, watching the sky, tracking the stars' movements. Shepherds, night watchmen, sailors navigating by the stars, priests performing midnight rituals, all developed an intimate familiarity with the night sky's rhythm. And in doing so, they learned something that modern sleep science has only recently rediscovered. The stars themselves can serve as zeitgebers, time givers, that help regulate sleep-wake cycles. The concept is subtle but important. In the absence of artificial light, the stars provided enough illumination to see basic shapes and movements. Not well, but enough to maintain spatial orientation and respond to threats. This dim, steady light created an intermediate state between the bright wakefulness of day and the total darkness of a clouded, moonless night. And human biology responded to this intermediate state with adjusted sleep patterns. Studies of people living without electricity, either by choice or circumstance, show that they often maintain a period of quiet wakefulness in the middle of the night, that watching hour mentioned earlier. During this time, they're conscious but calm, often lying quietly or engaging in low-key activities. And what are they often doing during these watches? Looking at the stars, observing the sky, unconsciously tracking the stellar clock as it wheels overhead. The star's movement itself becomes a kind of meditation. They turn at precisely the rate of Earth's rotation, 15 degrees per hour, which is slow enough that you don't see the movement directly, but fast enough that if you watch for 20 or 30 minutes, you'll notice stars have definitely changed position relative to landmarks on the horizon. This slow, majestic rotation, the same rotation that marks the passage of time, that carries us from night into day and back into night again, induces a contemplative state that's conducive to eventual sleep. Medieval monks structured their entire lives around this stellar clock. They developed the divine office, a schedule of prayers to be recited at specific times throughout the day and night. These times were determined by astronomical observations: matins at roughly 2 a.m., lauds at dawn, prime at sunrise, and so on through the day to compline at nightfall and vespers after dark. The monk responsible for timekeeping would learn which stars were visible at which positions at different times of year, allowing him to wake the community for their night prayers with reasonable accuracy. This practice meant that monks were sleeping in segments, just like their pre-industrial ancestors. They'd sleep from evening to around 2 a.m., wake for prayers and meditation, then return to sleep until dawn. This bifurcated sleep pattern, called biphasic sleep by modern researchers, appears to be more natural for humans than the consolidated 8-hour blocks we attempt today. And it was regulated not by clocks or alarms, but by the reliable precession of stars across the night sky. The stars offered something else too: perspective. When you lie on your back looking up at the vast wheeling cosmos, when you see the Milky Way stretching from horizon to horizon, when you spot a meteor streaking across the darkness or recognize the planets wandering their slow paths against the stellar background, you're confronted with your own smallness. This isn't a depressing realization, or it doesn't have to be. It can be profoundly calming. Your anxieties, your stresses, your racing thoughts, they seem less overwhelming when held against the backdrop of cosmic immensity and timelessness. The stars have been there for billions of years. They'll be there for billions more. They've witnessed every human drama, every crisis and triumph, every sleepless night of worry, and every peaceful rest. They don't judge. They don't care. They simply are, burning their nuclear fires across the incomprehensible distances of space, their light taking years or centuries to reach your eyes. This perspective helps facilitate the mental surrender that sleep requires. You can't control the cosmos. You can't alter the stars' paths or change their nature. All you can do is exist beneath them, small and temporary, part of the same universe, but at a scale so different that comparison becomes meaningless. And in accepting that smallness, that lack of control, you create space for rest. The stars were the ancient clockwork, not mechanical, but more reliable than any mechanism humans would create for thousands of years. They marked time with perfect precision, their movements governed by gravitational laws and the rotation of the planet beneath them. And in their slow turning, they created a rhythm that human sleep could synchronize with, a cosmic metronome that helped regulate rest even in the millennia before anyone understood why. But this ancient relationship between humanity and the night sky, between our sleep and the celestial rhythms that governed it, would face a revolutionary challenge, one that would transform human civilization and fundamentally alter our relationship with rest itself. Something changed when humans learned to command fire on demand, not the initial discovery of fire that came hundreds of thousands of years ago. And early humans remained deeply respectful of its power, its danger, its tendency to go out if not carefully tended. But something shifted when fire became easy, reliable, something you could create with a snap of flint and steel, with the strike of a match, with the turn of a gas valve. And something changed again, far more profoundly, when fire was replaced by electricity and darkness became optional. The transformation didn't happen all at once. It unfolded across centuries, gradually accelerating until the change became so total that most people alive today have never experienced true natural darkness, have never known what the night was like before artificial light pushed it back into the wilderness and the deep ocean. The last refuges where darkness can still claim its original territory. In the beginning, candles and oil lamps extended the day by an hour or two, creating a soft, warm glow that was bright enough for close work, sewing, reading, conversation, but not bright enough to fundamentally alter the circadian rhythm. These lights were expensive. Candles were made from tallow or beeswax, both valuable commodities. Oil was precious. You didn't waste these resources lighting an entire room when the sun had already set and sleep was the natural next activity. But they planted a seed of possibility, the idea that darkness could be resisted. That night didn't have to mean complete cessation of productive activity. The wealthy began extending their evenings, hosting candlelit gatherings and dinner parties that stretched past sunset. The poor continued to sleep on the sun's schedule because they had no choice. Candles were luxury items, not necessities. Then came gas lighting in the 19th century. Suddenly, for the first time in human history, bright artificial light became affordable for the middle class. Gas lamps could illuminate entire streets, entire homes, with a brilliance that candles couldn't approach. London installed gas street lighting in the early 1800s, and within decades, major cities across Europe and America followed. The night city, that strange, liminal space of activity continuing after dark, was born. Factories could now operate night shifts. Theaters could schedule evening performances. Shops could stay open after sunset. Social life reorganized itself around the new possibility of nighttime activity. And sleep? Sleep began to be pushed later, compressed, devalued as the culture began to celebrate productivity and wakefulness at all hours. But gas lighting was still relatively dim compared to what came next. And it still came with danger: gas leaks, explosions, poor air quality. The truly revolutionary moment arrived in 1879, when Thomas Edison perfected the incandescent light bulb. Electric light changed everything. It was safe. It was clean. It was bright, blindingly bright compared to anything that had come before. And it could be controlled with a switch, turned on or off instantly, with no need to tend flames or worry about running out of fuel. Within 50 years, electric lighting had spread through the developed world. Within a century, it reached even remote rural areas. Today, there are few places left on Earth where electric light is not available on demand. This is the story usually told: a triumph of technology, a victory over the inconvenience and danger of darkness. And in many ways, it is a triumph. Electric light has enabled countless advances in medicine, science, art, and culture. It has made homes safer. It has extended productive hours. It has allowed people to read and learn and create long after sunset. But there's another side to this story, one that's only recently begun to be understood and appreciated. In conquering darkness, in making light available at all hours, humanity disconnected itself from the celestial rhythms that had governed sleep for the entire history of our species. Your body, remember, is designed to respond to the sun's cycle. It tracks light levels and uses that information to set your circadian rhythm, to time the release of melatonin and cortisol, to regulate your temperature and alertness, and countless other functions. For hundreds of thousands of years, light meant sunlight, or occasionally firelight, which is quite different in its spectral composition and intensity. Your circadian system evolved to interpret light as a signal that it's daytime, time to be awake and active, and then, suddenly, in evolutionary terms, instantly, light became available at all hours, in all places, disconnected from the sun's position. Your circadian system tries to respond, but it's confused. Is it day? The light says yes, but the actual sun set hours ago. Your internal clock receives contradictory signals and struggles to maintain its timing. The problem is compounded by the specific type of light most artificial sources produce. Incandescent bulbs, LEDs, fluorescent tubes, and especially phone and computer screens all emit significant amounts of blue wavelength light. This is exactly the wavelength that most strongly suppresses melatonin production. The light that says, "Morning, wake up," is now available at midnight, at 2 a.m., at any hour you choose to turn on a device or a lamp. Studies have shown that even modest exposure to artificial light at night, the glow of a television, the screen of a phone, even an LED alarm clock, can significantly suppress melatonin and delay sleep onset. The brightness required to have this effect is surprisingly low. Even 50 lux, roughly equivalent to a dim table lamp, is enough to impact your circadian rhythm. For comparison, daylight is typically thousands of lux. Your body interprets even very dim artificial light as a signal that dawn might be approaching, that it's not yet time for deep sleep. The modern world has, essentially, created perpetual twilight. You wake to artificial light before dawn. You work under electric lighting all day, often seeing little natural sunlight. You return home to artificially lit evenings. You stare at bright screens before bed. And then you wonder why sleep doesn't come easily, why you don't feel rested, why your circadian rhythm seems dysfunctional. This isn't a moral failing. It's not a personal weakness. It's a profound mismatch between your biology and your environment. A mismatch that would never have been tolerated during the hundreds of thousands of years your sleep system was evolving. but which is now so ubiquitous that most people don't even recognize it as abnormal. Beyond the physiological effects, there are psychological and cultural impacts too. The availability of light at all hours has made sleep seem like a waste of time, an inconvenient necessity that gets in the way of productivity, entertainment, and social connection. The phrase, burning the midnight oil, used to be literal. You were consuming expensive fuel to stay awake late. Now it's a badge of honor, a sign of dedication or ambition. Sleep deprivation is celebrated in hustle culture, where successful people supposedly need less sleep. Where getting by on 4 or 5 hours is seen as evidence of commitment and drive. The natural human need for 7 to 9 hours of sleep is reframed as laziness or lack of ambition. And the celestial rhythms that use to govern rest, the sun's setting, the star's emergence, the moon's cycle, are dismissed as irrelevant in an age when light is always available at the touch of a switch. But your body hasn't adapted to this new world. Evolution operates on timescales of thousands of generations, not a few centuries. The circadian system that responds to the sun and the stars is still operating exactly as it did 50,000 years ago, still trying to follow celestial cues, still expecting darkness to arrive when the sun sets and light to return only with dawn. This is why the modern world experiences epidemic levels of insomnia and sleep disorders. This is why chronically insufficient sleep has been linked to obesity, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, depression, cognitive decline, and shortened lifespan. This is why so many people feel perpetually tired despite spending adequate time in bed. Their sleep is mistimed, fragmented, insufficient in depth because their circadian rhythms are in constant conflict with their artificial light exposure. The age of artificial light has brought immense benefits, but it has also imposed a hidden cost: the disconnection of human sleep from the celestial rhythms that created and refined it. And yet, the mechanisms themselves haven't changed. Your body still knows how to sleep well. It simply needs the right signals, the right timing, the right respect for the ancient astronomical forces that govern your biology. Which brings us to the question, what exactly are these mechanisms? How does this celestial dance of light and dark actually translate into the experience of falling asleep and waking up? Deep in the center of your brain, just above where the optic nerves cross, there's a cluster of about 20,000 neurons called the suprachiasmatic nucleus that's tiny, barely larger than a grain of rice. And yet, this minuscule structure is the master conductor of your body's biological orchestra, the central clock that coordinates the rhythms of practically every cell in your body. Understanding how it works is understanding how the cosmos speaks directly to your biology, how starlight and sunlight become hormones and temperature fluctuations, and the irresistible pull of sleep. The SCN is both ancient and sophisticated. Similar structures exist in virtually all animals, from fruit flies to elephants, suggesting this timing mechanism evolved very early in animal evolution and proved so valuable that it was preserved across hundreds of millions of years of divergent development. Its basic function is simple: to maintain a roughly 24-hour cycle of activity and rest. Even in the absence of external cues, this was discovered through elegant experiments where animals, and eventually human volunteers, were placed in environments with no time cues whatsoever, constant dim lighting, no clocks, no windows, no way to know whether it was day or night in the outside world. Researchers found that under these conditions, the animals' activity patterns continued to cycle between active and rest periods. But the cycle was slightly longer or shorter than 24 hours, usually about 24.2 hours for humans. Though there's individual variation, this is why the rhythm is called circadian rather than simply daily, because it runs on approximately a day, circa diem, rather than exactly 24 hours. The SCN generates this rhythm internally through complex genetic feedback loops involving clock genes that turn themselves on and off in a self-sustaining cycle. Even if you completely isolated an SCN neuron in a petri dish, it would continue to fire in a rhythmic pattern, maintaining its roughly 24-hour cycle entirely on its own. But here's the crucial part. While the SCN can maintain its rhythm independently, it's designed to be synchronized by external cues, with light being by far the most powerful synchronizing agent. Those specialized light-sensitive cells in your retina, the intrinsically photosensitive, retinal ganglion cells that don't contribute to vision, send signals directly to the SCN reporting ambient light levels. When the SCN receives information that light levels have increased, it interprets this as dawn and resets its clock accordingly. When light levels drop, it interprets this as dusk and initiates its evening program. This synchronization, called entrainment, is what keeps your internal 24.2-hour rhythm aligned with the actual 24-hour day. Without it, your internal clock would gradually drift out of sync with the external world, causing you to feel sleepy at progressively later times each day. In fact, people with certain rare disorders affecting the SCN or the pathways connecting it to the retina experience exactly this problem. Their circadian rhythms free run without being properly anchored to the day-night cycle, causing their sleep patterns to shift later and later each day until they wrap all the way around the clock. Once entrained, the SCN coordinates an astonishingly complex symphony of physiological changes throughout the day. In the morning, when light hits your eyes, the SCN signals the pineal gland to stop producing melatonin. This hormone, often called the darkness hormone, promotes sleep and drowsiness. Its suppression helps you feel alert. Simultaneously, the SCN signals the adrenal glands to increase cortisol production. Cortisol gets a bad reputation because of its association with stress, but in normal circadian function, it's essential. It provides the energy and alertness you need to start your day. The SCN also coordinates your body temperature, which rises throughout the morning and into the afternoon, then falls in the evening and reaches its lowest point in the early morning hours, a few hours before your normal wake time. This temperature rhythm is tightly linked to the sleep-wake cycle. You need to be cooler to sleep well, which is why hot bedrooms can make sleep difficult. Throughout the day, the SCN adjusts digestive function, immune activity, hormone release, blood pressure, and countless other processes, timing them to be most efficient at appropriate times. Your immune system is more active at night, for instance, which is why you often feel worse when you're sick in the evening. Then in the morning, your body is ramping up immune defenses during the hours it expects to be resting and recovering. As evening approaches and light levels decline, the SCN initiates the sleep preparation sequence. Melatonin production begins, usually starting about 2 hours before your habitual bedtime. Core body temperature continues its decline. Cortisol levels drop. Alertness gradually wanes. If everything is working properly, if your light exposure has been appropriate, if your sleep schedule is consistent, if you're respecting your circadian rhythm rather than fighting it, this process feels smooth and natural. Drowsiness arrives gently, building gradually until sleep becomes irresistible. But here's where it gets truly interesting. The SCN is not the only clock in your body. Almost every cell contains its own circadian machinery, its own set of clock genes cycling on roughly 24-hour timescales. Your liver cells have clocks. Your muscle cells have clocks. Your skin cells have clocks. And all of these peripheral clocks are coordinated by the SCN, which sends signals through hormones, through body temperature changes, through nervous system activity that keep all the clocks synchronized. This distributed timing system means that circadian disruption affects essentially every system in your body. When you stay up late despite your SCN signals that it's time to sleep, when you expose yourself to bright light at midnight, when you eat meals at irregular times, you're not just affecting your sleep, you're disrupting the timing of countless cellular processes that depend on circadian coordination. This is why shift workers have higher rates of metabolic disorders, cardiovascular disease, and cancer. It's why jet lag feels so awful. It's not just tiredness from lack of sleep. It's the deep biological confusion of having all your cellular clocks out of sync with each other and with the external world. The beautiful thing about understanding circadian science is that it validates what ancient peoples knew intuitively, that your body is designed to follow the sun's rhythm. That light and dark are not just environmental conditions, but biological signals. That sleep is not a switch you flip, but a natural consequence of properly timed circadian processes. When you respect these processes, when you get bright light exposure in the morning, when you dim lights in the evening, when you maintain consistent sleep and wake times, when you allow darkness to be dark and light to be light, your circadian system functions as it's designed to. The SCN entrains properly to the solar day. Your peripheral clocks stay synchronized. Melatonin rises at appropriate times. Your body temperature follows its natural curve, and sleep comes easily, naturally, the way it's meant to. The cosmos shaped these rhythms. The sun's predictable rising and setting, acting on life over billions of years, created the genetic machinery that now governs your sleep and wakefulness. The molecular mechanisms are sophisticated: clock genes and protein feedback loops and neural networks. But they exist for a simple purpose: to keep you synchronized with the turning of your planet, with the daily transition between the star-facing and star-opposite sides of your world. You are, in the most literal sense, a clockwork creature. Not mechanical clockwork, but cosmic clockwork, your timing governed by the same astronomical forces that time the tides and the seasons. The circadian rhythm is not something imposed on you from outside. It's fundamental to what you are, how you function, how you exist as a biological being on a spinning planet orbiting a star. And when you sleep, when you finally surrender to the drowsiness that your circadian rhythm creates, when you close your eyes and drift into unconsciousness, you're not leaving the cosmos behind. You're entering another mode of engagement with it, one that humanity has always understood as special, mysterious, and profoundly connected to forces beyond ordinary waking perception. Where do you go when you dream? It's a question humans have asked for as long as language has existed, probably longer. Because dreams are universal. Every human culture has them. Every person experiences them, and yet they remain fundamentally mysterious. They feel significant, laden with meaning, as though consciousness in sleep operates according to different rules than consciousness in wakefulness. And many ancient peoples believed that dreams were a form of connection to something larger, something cosmic. The ancient Greeks believed that dreams were messages sent by the gods, delivered through gates of horn and ivory. True prophecies came through the horn gate, false visions through ivory. The Mesopotamians built dream temples where people would sleep specifically to receive divine guidance or healing. The Aboriginal peoples of Australia speak of the dream time, a realm where the ancestors created the world and where the living can still connect to that creative source through dreams and sleep. Native American traditions include vision quests, deliberate periods of sleep deprivation followed by deep rest, designed to induce powerful dreams carrying spiritual insight. These weren't primitive superstitions, or rather, they weren't merely that. They were attempts to make sense of a genuine mystery. Why does the sleeping mind generate these elaborate, often bizarre, emotionally charged scenarios? What purpose do they serve? And why do they sometimes feel more real, more significant than waking experience? Modern neuroscience has mapped the brain states associated with dreaming. We know that most vivid dreams occur during REM, rapid eye movement, sleep, when the brain is highly active, almost as active as during wakefulness, but the body is paralyzed to prevent you from acting out your dreams. We know that specific neurotransmitters create these states, that specific brain regions activate and deactivate, that dreams involve memory consolidation and emotional processing. But knowing the mechanism doesn't eliminate the mystery. Because the subjective experience of dreaming, the feeling of inhabiting impossible spaces, of meeting people who aren't quite themselves, of experiencing emotions more intense than waking life allows, of having insights that feel profound, even when you can't quite articulate them upon waking, that experience remains strange and wondrous. And there's something particularly poignant about the ancient association between dreams and the night sky, between sleep and the cosmos. Because in a sense, when you dream, you do enter another realm, not a supernatural one, but the interior realm of your own mind, freed from the constraints that sensory input and logical thinking impose during waking hours. The sleeping brain, disconnected from external input, begins to generate its own reality. Memories mix with imagination. Emotions take visual form. Anxieties become scenarios. Desires create narratives. The dreaming mind is incredibly creative, able to construct detailed environments, generate novel solutions to problems, combine ideas in ways that waking consciousness rarely manages. Many artists, scientists, and inventors have reported that their best insights came to them in dreams. The structure of the benzene molecule, the plot of Jekyll and Hyde, The Melody of Yesterday by Paul McCartney. The list goes on. In dreams, the usual rules don't apply. You can fly. You can breathe underwater. You can meet the dead. Time flows strangely. Hours can pass in what feels like minutes, or seconds can stretch into eternity. The physical laws that govern waking reality become suggestions rather than requirements. And this liberation from constraint, this freedom from the tyranny of the real, is what made ancient peoples think of dreams as cosmic experiences, as journeys to other realms. Perhaps they weren't entirely wrong. Not literally. You're not actually traveling anywhere when you dream. But metaphorically, dreams do represent a different mode of consciousness. One where the boundaries between self and world, between past and present, between possible and impossible, become fluid. You're still under the same night sky as your ancestors, still lying on the same spinning planet. But internally, you've moved to a place where the usual categories no longer quite apply. The connection between sleep, dreams, and the cosmos becomes clearer when you consider the conditions that promote vivid dreaming. People who sleep outdoors often report more intense, more memorable dreams than when sleeping indoors. Why? Possibly because sleeping under the open sky creates subtle environmental changes, temperature fluctuations, natural sounds, the presence of moonlight, that influence sleep architecture without fully waking you, creating more transitions into and out of REM sleep. The state in which the most vivid dreams occur. The moon's phase appears to correlate with dream intensity and recall. Several studies have found that people report more vivid, emotionally charged dreams around the full moon. The mechanism isn't clear. It might be the subtle effects of moonlight penetrating eyelids, or it might be something else entirely. But the correlation is there, consistent across different populations and studies. Your ancestors, who paid much closer attention to the moon's cycle, would not have been surprised. There's also the simple psychological effect of bedtime rituals involving the night sky. When you spend time looking at stars before sleep, when you consciously acknowledge the cosmos as you prepare for rest, you're priming your mind in a particular way. You're setting an intention, creating a frame that influences how your sleeping brain processes information and generates dream content. This is why many meditation traditions include contemplation of the sky, the stars, the vastness of space, because these expansive thoughts create mental conditions conducive to particular types of insight and experience. Dreams are also where your brain does much of its housekeeping. During sleep, particularly during REM stages, your brain processes the day's experiences, deciding what to keep and what to discard, strengthening important memories and letting unimportant ones fade. This is why sleep deprivation impairs learning and memory. You're not giving your brain the processing time it needs. The dreams that arise during this processing are like watching your brain's filing system at work, seeing fragments of memory being moved, compared, integrated with older knowledge and experience. But dreams are more than just neural housekeeping. They're also deeply emotional experiences. The amygdala, your brain's emotion center, is highly active during REM sleep. Meanwhile, the prefrontal cortex, the logical, rational part of your brain, is relatively quiet. This creates experiences that are emotionally vivid but logically incoherent, which is exactly what dreams feel like. You accept impossible situations because your critical thinking is offline. You feel intense emotions because that's the system that's currently running the show. This emotional processing appears to be crucial for mental health. People deprived of REM sleep become emotionally dysregulated, more anxious, more reactive, less able to cope with stress. The dreams that occur during REM sleep seem to allow you to experience, process, and integrate difficult emotions in a safe context. You can confront fears, work through grief, process anger, all while your body lies safely in bed. It's as though dreams create a protected space for emotional work that would be too overwhelming or disruptive if experienced in waking life. And here again, the ancient intuition proves insightful. People have always felt that dreams carried meaning, that they helped you understand yourself, that they provided guidance or insight or healing. Modern psychology agrees, though the mechanisms proposed are neurological rather than supernatural. Dreams are where you meet yourself, where the unconscious mind can express what consciousness keeps hidden, where you can see your fears and desires without the defensive structures you maintain while awake. So, when ancient people spoke of dreaming as a cosmic experience, as a time when the soul travels, or the gods speak, or you connect with ancestral wisdom, they were describing something real, just not necessarily in literal terms. They were describing the transformation of consciousness that occurs in sleep, the way dreaming creates a reality that feels separate from and often more meaningful than ordinary waking life. You dream beneath the same stars that witnessed your ancestors' dreams. Your REM sleep follows the same neural patterns that have existed as long as mammals have existed. The emotional processing, the memory consolidation, the strange creativity of the dreaming mind. These are ancient inheritances, shaped by evolutionary pressures stretching back millions of years. And when you wake from a particularly vivid dream, disoriented, not quite sure for a moment where or when you are, you're experiencing a tiny echo of what your ancestors experienced every morning. The return from the inner cosmos of the mind to the outer cosmos of stars and sun. The transition from one mystery to another. From the darkness of sleep to the light of day. But that daily awakening is itself part of a larger pattern. A legacy of rest and wakefulness that extends far beyond any individual's experience. There's a thought experiment I'd like you to consider as you settle into stillness tonight. Imagine you could see, somehow, all the sleeping humans who ever existed. Not sequentially, not one after another across time, but simultaneously, all at once. Every person who ever closed their eyes in rest. From the first Homo sapiens sleeping under African stars 200,000 years ago to the person lying in bed right now in Tokyo or Toronto or Tanzania. Billions upon billions of sleepers. A vast human landscape of rest, stretching across time and space. And what would you see? Not chaos, not randomness, but rhythm, pattern. The great breathing of humanity, synchronized, roughly, imperfectly, but undeniably, with the turning of the earth beneath the stars. Because despite all the cultural differences, despite the vast gulfs of time and geography and technology that separate these sleepers from each other, they share something fundamental. They all sleep beneath the same sky. They all respond to the same celestial rhythms. The sun that woke the first humans is the same sun that woke you this morning. Not metaphorically, but literally the same star. The moon that pulled at the first sleeper's biology pulls at yours. The circadian machinery that governed rest and wakefulness 100,000 years ago is essentially identical to the machinery operating in your brain right now. You are part of an unbroken chain of sleepers stretching back to the dawn of humanity. Your sleep is not an isolated event, but a link in an infinite sequence. A single note in a symphony that has been playing for hundreds of thousands of years and will continue long after you're gone. This continuity is profound. In a world that often feels fractured and disconnected, where change accelerates dizzyingly, where the past seems increasingly remote and irrelevant, sleep remains constant. The experience of drowsiness arriving as darkness deepens, of consciousness fading into dreams, of waking to light. This has not changed. This cannot change, not without fundamentally altering what it means to be human. Your ancestors knew this, though they might have expressed it differently. They understood that sleep was sacred, that it connected them to something larger than themselves. They created rituals around sleep, prayers before bed, dream interpretations upon waking, specific sleeping positions believed to invite good dreams or prevent bad ones. These practices weren't just superstition. They were acknowledgments of sleep's importance, attempts to honor and protect this vulnerable, essential state. And what they understood intuitively, modern science confirms. Sleep is not optional. It's not a luxury or a weakness. It's as fundamental to life as eating or breathing. Every animal that has a nervous system above a certain complexity sleeps, from fruit flies to blue whales. The specific patterns vary. Some animals sleep in hemispheres, keeping half the brain awake while the other rests. Some sleep for 20 hours a day, some for just a few, but they all sleep. There is no animal that has evolved to completely eliminate sleep, despite the obvious advantages that never needing to rest would provide. Sleep, it turns out, is non-negotiable. Life requires it. For humans specifically, sleep is when we consolidate memories, when we process emotions, when we clear metabolic waste from our brains, when we repair tissues and regenerate cells, when we integrate the day's experiences into our ongoing understanding of ourselves and the world. Without sleep, we literally fall apart. Cognitive function declines, emotional regulation fails, physical health deteriorates. Prolonged sleep deprivation is fatal, more rapidly and reliably than starvation. And yet we live in an age that devalues sleep, that treats it as an inconvenience, that celebrates sleeplessness as productivity or dedication. We flood our evenings with artificial light. We stare at screens until moments before we expect to fall asleep. We maintain irregular schedules that confuse our circadian rhythms. We consume caffeine in quantities and at times that interfere with sleep onset. And then we're surprised when sleep becomes difficult, when rest feels inadequate, when we wake tired day after day. The night's quiet legacy is this: for the vast majority of human history, sleep was respected. Not because people understood its neurobiology, but because they had no choice. When darkness came, there was little to do but rest. The sky's rhythm was unavoidable, inescapable, and in following that rhythm, humans slept better than most people do today. This isn't nostalgic romanticism. Studies comparing sleep patterns in people living without electricity to those in industrialized nations consistently find that pre-industrial sleep patterns, earlier bedtimes, fewer night awakenings, better synchronization with the solar day, correlate with better sleep quality and better overall health. Not because the past was better in some general sense, but because in this specific domain, the absence of artificial light meant people's circadian rhythms remained aligned with celestial cues. But here's the crucial insight: you can reclaim some of this alignment. You can't return to a pre-industrial lifestyle, and probably wouldn't want to. But you can create conditions that respect your biology's connection to astronomical rhythms. You can seek morning sunlight to set your circadian clock. You can dim lights in the evening. You can reduce blue light exposure before bed. You can maintain consistent sleep and wake times. You can sleep in darkness that's actually dark, not the ambient glow of screens and streetlights. These aren't just practical sleep hygiene tips. They're ways of honoring the ancient relationship between your body and the cosmos, of allowing the celestial rhythms that shaped your biology to function as they're meant to. And when you do this, when you create the conditions for natural sleep, something remarkable happens. Sleep becomes easier. It feels different. The drowsiness arrives more gently and more certainly. The transition into sleep feels smooth rather than forced. You wake more naturally, often just before your alarm, your body having completed its nightly processes and prepared itself for the day ahead. This is sleep as your ancestors experienced it. Not perfect. They dealt with cold and discomfort and danger that you're fortunate to avoid, but fundamentally aligned with biology, with the Earth's rotation, with the movement of celestial bodies overhead. You are, right now, lying beneath the same night sky that sheltered every human who came before you. The stars wheeling overhead are the same stars that ancient shepherds watched, that medieval monks used to time their prayers, that sailors navigated by, that lovers gazed at, that philosophers contemplated. They've been there, constant and patient, through every human drama and triumph and tragedy. They were there before humanity existed. They'll be there long after we're gone. This perspective, this cosmic view, is not meant to make you feel insignificant. It's meant to locate you within a vast continuity, to help you see that your sleep, your rest, your dreaming are part of something much larger than your individual experience. You're participating in the great planetary rhythm of rest and activity, the endless cycle of consciousness and unconsciousness, the nightly surrender to sleep that billions of humans have made before you and billions will make after you're gone. But there's comfort in this. In a world of constant change and uncertainty, sleep remains. The biological need for rest persists. The sun will set tonight and rise tomorrow morning. The moon will continue its patient cycling. The stars will turn overhead, marking time as they always have. And you, preparing now for sleep, are exactly where you should be, aligned with the cosmos, responding to the same cues your ancestors responded to, allowing the ancient machinery of the circadian rhythm to guide you into rest. Feel the weight of your body against the bed. Notice your breathing, how it's already beginning to slow and deepen. Your muscles are releasing tension you didn't know you were carrying. Your thoughts are becoming less linear, less focused, beginning to drift into the associative, dreamlike patterns that precede sleep. This is natural. This is right. This is what your body has been designed through hundreds of thousands of years to do when darkness comes and the day's demands finally cease. Let yourself sink deeper into comfort. Let the concerns of the day recede. They'll still be there tomorrow if they need addressing, but for now, they can wait. For now, there's only this, the quiet, the darkness, the gentle pull of sleep that you're safe beneath the stars. The cosmos watches over you with the same patient indifference it's always shown, neither judging nor demanding, simply being, simply turning according to laws far older than humanity, far more reliable than any human creation. And as you drift now, as consciousness begins its nightly fade into dreams and deep sleep, remember this: you're not alone. Across the planet, hundreds of millions of people are doing exactly what you're doing, surrendering to sleep, trusting in the ancient rhythm that governs all life on this spinning world. The night embraces you. The darkness holds you. The celestial forces that created your need for sleep now fulfill that need, drawing you down into rest, down and down and down, into the quiet, into the stillness, into sleep, and the stars keep watch, as they always have, as they always will, patient and eternal. While humanity rests and dreams beneath their distant light,